So Retrograde has been in development for 4 or 5 years now. I first discovered it, played it at IndieCade back in 2010, where the game was on display as a finalist, also won the Audience Choice Award. If I recall correctly, it was already a full, pretty polished experience. So what have you guys focused on in development these last couple of years?
Well, so the game has been in development for about 4 years. We started 24 Caret in like July of 2008, and we spent maybe 2 months building out tech and working on a demo, and then we started developing Retrograde as a game. I think, I don't know, September-ish, thereabouts, August, September of 2008. So we've definitely been doing this for a long time, and since IndieCade, we've basically been going through and improving everything and increasing the polish level. We've done a huge pass on the graphics, and we have more effects and motion blur and animated backgrounds, and we've really sort of tried to bring everything up a notch. And then also we've gone through all of the gameplay, created some more bosses and more variety, and really tried to create a full experience. We've also have a sort of a challenge mode, which was sort of, originally the idea was it was a sort of side, just something else to add some extra content, and it actually evolved into almost the meat of the actual game. So we have this whole challenge map, which has I think 130 different challenges, and it's sort of like the Mortal Kombat challenge tower, in that we take the basic gameplay and then do twists and change the rules and stuff. It's sort of like Super Mario Brothers, and there's branching paths, and there's warps, and then different rewards. We have a number of different ships you can pilot, and we actually incorporated a number of ships from other indie games. Like we have a Super Meat Boy ship where Meat Boy is the pilot, and he's dancing around, and a Minecraft-inspired ship as well.
So with the guitar peripheral being kind of the featured input device and at the forefront when you look at the game and you see some of the media for the game, does it concern you at all that the rhythm genre has diminished?
Well, so firstly, I think to say that rhythm game genre is decreasing is not accurate. If you take a look at the new dance game craze, like Just Dance, Dance Central, I would say that those are basically rhythm games. It's just another form. And I think that the main problem with Guitar Hero and Rock Band is that they didn't really evolve the gameplay formulas. And so I think Retrograde, we're in a good position to offer something new and exciting for all those fans that really enjoyed Guitar Hero and Rock Band. And I would say that it's a plus that everyone has these guitars and they're collecting dust, because I think a lot of people will want to find a new use for them. The only thing that I think is bad about that is that basically it's very difficult to find guitar controllers if you don't have them anymore. Like if you threw them out, you can find some in like thrift shops, but basically like EB Games doesn't carry them, or GameStop or whatever.
Your game definitely has a rhythm element to it. There's no denying it. When you look at it, you might not get it right away, but when you play it, like I just got to, it was literally like playing a song. Can you tell me a bit about the soundtrack?
So, when we did our original GDC demo way back when, we were working with, basically when we thought of doing a rhythm game, I thought of one of my personal favorite musicians, Skylar McLaughlin, who also goes by Nautilus, and he's a million different bands and different musical projects, so he has a very diverse sort of musical composition background. And so we had struck up an email correspondence a while back, and he mentioned he was interested in doing music for video games. So basically when I came up with the idea of Retrograde, I thought we really need a strong soundtrack, and so it seemed like Skylar was going to be a great fit for that, and fortunately he was willing to work on the project with us. So initially we, for the GDC demo, we just used some tracks that he had already written. Then once we had more time, we basically had him compose the songs with our gameplay goals in mind. And so usually what we would do is he would compose a song, and then I would work on the gameplay pattern and figure out where it fit in the difficulty progression, and sort of what we wanted to do, and then give him tempos and ideas for other songs and where they would fit in terms of the complexity and the difficulty. Because one of the things is I really wanted to ensure a smooth difficulty curve, because unlike some rhythm games where you play a level on expert and it's trivially easy, like on Rock Band there's, I think, one of the Beastie Boys thing where it's just a strum every 2 measures, and that's the expert pattern.
Right.
And then, there's the super crazy stuff. So basically I wanted to focus on less content and create really high quality content in terms of both musically and gameplay. I'm very fortunate to work with Skylar just because he is very understanding with making adjustments to the music for the purposes of gameplay, because I've heard stories of game composers where they say, no, I don't write music like that, I don't want to write that music. But he's said, I don't think this is a good musical choice. If I were releasing this on a CD, I would not do it this way, but I understand that it's important to gameplay.
In past conversations, you've always stuck with stating the game would release on PS3 first and foremost. While you wouldn't exclude it from hitting other platforms after a PSN launch, you wouldn't really consider anything else until it was out there. Indulge me. Let's pretend it's a few months ahead, the game is out. What other platforms would you consider at that point?
I mean, it's kind of a difficult thing, and it's something I ask myself frequently. It's kind of almost terrifying if you look at when we started on the game 4 years ago and you look at now. The landscape is completely different, and the platforms, everything is different, and so we don't have the easiest game to port just because we have a lot of high-end 3D graphics stuff. We've done a lot of PlayStation 3 specific optimization, so really we're going to have to take a step back and see where the market is for retrograde and see where that makes sense. I'm not willing to commit to anything at the moment, but I'm also not willing to exclude anything.
Any update you can give us on a release date or target, or what pricing might be for the game?
Well, we're still looking at summer for the release date. It's difficult to narrow it down just because there's a number of steps we have to work with Sony and come up with a date that makes sense in terms of PlayStation Network positioning. And so I can't really give a definitive release date. I mean, it's not going to be tomorrow or anything, but it's sometime this summer. And as far as price, we're not sure yet. It's going to be comparable in price to other games on the platform, but we haven't made any decisions about that. I think finally we're close. I mean, barring any sort of catastrophe, because one of the problems with having such a small development team is if I were to get sick or injured or in a car accident or something, that destroys our schedule. Sure. Essentially. So it's difficult. I don't want to get people's hopes up, but I think we're in a pretty good position. The game is pretty much done. It's just a matter of fixing bugs and making sure everything is sort of the level of polish that we are comfortable with.
How did the hard hat persona kind of come about? Was that a marriage with the development of Retrograde? Have you always kind of had that for the right occasion? Where was the birth of that, I guess?
So basically the idea was, since our company is called 24 Caret Games, it was supposed to be sort of a gold miner motif, and that's why I have the gold bow tie and everything. Basically to draw attention to myself, right? Because we have to sell a product to keep being an indie developer, we have to make people buy retrograde. We have to draw attention to retrograde. And so it seemed like a pretty easy way to draw attention to myself and then, therefore, the game. And yeah, I mean, it's not the most comfortable hat in the world. It's actually a hard hat I bought on eBay. And so, I was wearing the bow tie. It was kind of tight, and I had these horrible rashes on my neck because I guess the material didn't agree with me. And it was like, oh man, it's so painful. But I mean, it's the you have to do what it takes if you want to succeed as an indie developer. When we were at GDC, some lady was there. She seemed kind of out of place. I think she was actually from NPR's Marketplace segment, and they were talking about the business of games. And so I don't think she knew very much about game development, and so she picked random people to talk to, and so she came up to me, and so I got on NPR talking about game development and the business side of that, just because I was dressed up like an idiot. So I strongly recommend it.
Yeah.